Welcome to another exciting episode of Kop Or No Kop. I am your host, Kevin C. Meggett. This week, I'm a standalone, so I'm going to give it to you by myself. I have no Andy King, and I don't have a Janaea Butler. Janaea is actually our co-host of the show. But, you know, I'm going to try to bring her on and bring Mr. King back. I always like a good conversation, and I always like a difference of opinion. So shout out to Mr. King, and shout out to Janaea Butler, wherever you guys are at. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news before I bring my guest on. Okay, let's talk about the winners and losers. Governor Cuomo is officially stepping down, or probably by now have stepped down. So I think he's kind of taking the L. You know, he's kind of a loser. You know, for what happened. But you know, I was listening to Mr. King's opinion on it, and it was enlightening. He was denied due process. I don't think we should be trying our elected officials in the media. Rather, we should be trying them in a court of law. We should be trying them with a fair and impartial board that would get to the root of the problem, whether it's truth or false. A lot of people have agendas, and sometimes he might have been a victim of an agenda or political witch hunt. Excuse me. But that's politics. I mean, you're not going to get a boo-hoo out of me. I'm not going to cry a river for former Governor Cuomo, because I kind of remember who he ran against and unseated, which was another Democrat, and everyone cried. No, matter of fact, I'm sorry. I think I'm the only one that cried foul. No one really cried foul when he ran against then Governor Patterson, who was the only black governor at that time to have held that position. And so you're not going to get a boo-hoo out of me. Shame on anyone that looks like me and claims to be a part of me that's boo-hooing for him, because we need to start caring for our own and protecting our own. And then, you know, my great-grandmother, Georgiana Frazier, rest in peace, always said, charity starts at home and then it travels abroad. So, you know, okay, I'm moving on. So yeah, he's a big loser, and I think Patterson probably could see the pictures, no pun intended, and he's probably smiling, so he's probably a winner. What else has been winners and losers lately? The mandate. Let's talk about the mandatory mandate in New York City. I believe that to be one big loser, and Mayor de Blasio, he is a big loser. My problem, I'm not anti-vaccination at all. I believe it should be a choice. And what we're looking at, essentially, ladies and gentlemen, is medical discrimination, because I have to submit to a weekly COVID test just so I could be gainfully employed and take care of myself and my family. And those that have gotten the first dose, they get a card, and all they have to do is present their card, and they don't have to submit to the vigorous shoving a Q-tip up their nose every week like I have to. Now, what makes this a medical discrimination, and the drawback to that is, just because you are vaccinated does not mean you will not catch COVID. Jesse Jackson and his wife, they're 100% vaccinated. However, they are both in the hospital with COVID. So what are we doing here, America? Isn't this America? We're superimposing our will on people. You had an airline steward, I think about 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week, he contracted COVID and died, and he was fully vaccinated. So my argument is, where's the burden of proof with vaccinated people having to take a COVID vaccine exam every week and presenting it as well? Because you're not immune, you're not exempt to catching COVID. So I'm ran through the mill because I refuse to go and get a COVID shot, and I'm discriminated against it. Just a couple of days ago, I just want to say maybe a week ago, they had this 5-borough hip hop concert, which it was a little murky. They made it sound as if hip hop was pro-vaccination, and the only way you could go to these big A-list concerts or old school concerts, which were once upon a time they were A-list, were you had to be vaccinated. I found out it wasn't true. You just had to be able to be vaccinated or show you a negative COVID test. But that's not the message that the city of New York portrayed. And shame on them. This mandate that came by way of New York City, I question the legality of it. I think it's very illegal. And I think on a constitutional level, it should be considered very illegal for you to superimpose these vaccines, not only on adults, but now soon kids 12 and over. There are countries that have rebound from COVID without vaccines. But, you know, FDA just approved it, but they approved it because it's something that was created here. So, you know, made in America, you know, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, made in America, FDA approved it. So I kind of don't want to move away from the politics of this vaccine. And what I will challenge people, I'm neither a Republican nor a Democrat. I just go with what makes sense. And the question that I raise is, would we have had the same energy? Would there be a mandate? Would there be a concert? Would there be all of these things if this vaccination was under the Trump administration at that time? You know, if Trump was still president, and I'm not advocating for Trump, not advocating against him either, but if Trump was still president, would we have had the same energy? Will we have had the commercials? Will we have had the shaming, the public announcements, every A-list movie star, sports entertainment folk coming out saying get vaccinated? Would we have had that same energy? So I want you to really think about this. You know, I for one, you know, don't think so. I for one doubt very highly. So, you know, you can't dismiss the politics of this, and you cannot say wholeheartedly that these vaccines are 100% effective and safe for children that are 12 and over, because there is no clinical test study that you could compare to that would suggest that it is safe for children 12 years or over. Also, the vaccines are, when you talk about it like I'm talking about it now, and I want to thank Millennium 24 for giving me the platform to talk about it. But what happens usually is you get shadow banned, you get kicked off of certain social medias like YouTube. So this is agenda-based, ladies and gentlemen. It's very un-American. This isn't how America works. And I really wish someone challenged this and bring it up to the United States Supreme Court, because what's next? We're going to mandate and superimpose flu shots? Okay, moving right along. Who else are winners and losers? Oh, so like we're going to get a new governor soon. And everyone's trying to guess who's the lieutenant governor going to be. In a perfect world, I would say Ruben Diaz Jr. would probably be the best candidate. And the reason why is he's probably safer than a birth control, but you're going to get the Latino votes behind him. I don't believe Jumaane Williams is really interested in the job. I think Jumaane is going to actually run. He's never spoken to me personally about it, but if he'd love to come on the show and talk about it, I'd love to have him. Carl Hastie, he's actually the number 3 man. He's actually advocating to have Jamal Bailey as lieutenant governor, and I don't think that'd be a bad idea either. Jamal Bailey is also he's also very safe. He's safe as a birth control as well, because he does exactly what Carl tells him to do, as does Kevin Raleigh, and anyone else that is affiliated with Carl Hastie. I'm a firm believer. You could judge a person not what you say when they're in your presence, but what you say in their absence. So Andy's not here. I could speak, and I'm speaking freely. I honestly believe wholeheartedly Carl Hastie had everything to do with Andy King's ousting. It only made sense because he was able to stick his mentee in that position, which was Kevin Rowley. And so now you have Carl Hastie in state pulling things because he's the number 3 man. You have Kevin Bailey, which was one of his other mentees as state assembly. And, you know, truth be told, they ousted Ruth Hassel Thompson in a similar manner, which they did to Andy King. And then now what they did to Andy King. They love to run with this narrative that, oh my God, we can't talk to Andy because there's a federal investigation. There is no federal investigation against Andy King, ladies and gentlemen. That is fairy tale, and it's very orchestrated. And if there were any criminal charges on him, he would be in jail. And the last time I checked, sexual harassment, laundering money, and all of these things that City Council has accused the former City Council member of were crimes, and he should have been in jail, and he's not. And the mere fact that he's not says a lot to the fact that this was a political witch hunt, and everyone from Mayor de Blasio down are complicit in that. And I think de Blasio has to be the dumbest mayor that we've ever had. He has no spine. Rudolph Giuliani, in my humblest opinion, and I thought he was the worst mayor ever until Bill de Blasio took that position. So Bill de Blasio, you're now a double loser. What else is going on that we could talk about? Oh, Afghanistan. The Biden administration, they're losers. They're losers because you had this 20-year-old war in Afghanistan, right? Thousands upon thousands of people lost their lives for what we thought was fighting for democracy and freedom. First and foremost, we're not fighting for democracy, ladies and gentlemen. When we usually enter any kind of war, there's a financial benefit from it and for it. And Afghanistan was no different. The narrative at that time, 20 years ago, is we were going for Osama bin Laden. Well, America allegedly had gotten Osama bin Laden, and they should have been looking for a way to come out of that at that particular moment and time. And the way that the Biden administration handled that was the sloppiest thing ever. But I don't expect anything because Joe Biden has never, President Joe Biden, I don't want to be disrespectful. President Joe Biden has never served a day in uniform. And so I don't expect him to have a great exit plan for that. But, you know, he could have and should have done a lot better. And I think the Republicans are going to have a field day with this. They're actually going to jump up and down, and they're going to attack this man's foreign policy. But they don't have a moral leg to stand on with that either, because them attacking his foreign policy, they spend more time attacking his foreign policy. They should have that same energy on how the White House was almost taken over. So, I mean, both parties really are the pits. We need to create a third party independent of both the Democrats and the Republicans, and definitely the Social Democrats. They're the worst to me because I think they kind of want Christmas gifts on Halloween. So, I mean, go figure. All right, that's my rant for right now. I'm gonna go to a real quick commercial break, and I'm going to bring on our guest who advocates for the homeless. This is your boy, Kevin C. Meggett, Kop Or No Kop. We'll be right back.
What does a Regis divorce, a Regis bankruptcy, and a Regis personal injury claim have in common? Regis lawyers. Lawyers who care. Convenient, affordable, respectful, and experienced. We work 100% for the 99%. Over 20 years, we've helped thousands throughout the Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island. For a free consultation with an experienced attorney, call or text us at 212-766-1100. Ici, hablamos español.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
And we're back with Kop Or No Kop on M24. I'm your host, Kevin C. Meggett. So I went into a real big rant in the beginning of the segment. I meant everything I said everything I meant, but I wanted to add just a little bit on to it. One of the things we need to discuss is with this COVID is also the cleanliness of the city. The city's filthy. And there are organizations out there that try to do really great work to clean it up. I mean, the city is filthy. And so one of the things about COVID was supposed to be known as a clean disease. You're supposed to always wash your hands, keep them sterile, use sanitizer, wear the mask. But you're doing all of that in vain because the city is filthy. So perhaps maybe if they find resources to clean up this city, maybe we could clean up the COVID. And that makes Mayor de Blasio a 3-time loser. So he's really batting 1,000 right now at loss. Maybe after when I finish with my guests, he might become a 4-time loser. So what I really want to discuss is how there's a group of volunteers that go around and they try to clean up the city, and they are homeless, and the organization is called the Doe Fund. And the Doe Fund is actually really a nice organization because they actually pay these folks to like I believe minimum wage to actually clean up, sweep, dump trash, so forth and so on, and try to beautify the city. And I believe they even get city grants, if I'm not mistaken. And so, you know, those city grants are coming from city council and the mayor. So, you know, ultimately it's our tax dollars, and I like to see that expanded if we can, because there's one thing that you can give a homeless person that they love, and that's an opportunity and initiative. Speaking of which, I'm bringing on my guest. She herself will tell you who she is. I'm gonna introduce her. Her name is Charlie Newman, and she has an organization called The Rise of Broken Women. Charlie, are you there with me?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on Kop Or No Kop.
Yay! First of all, I want to thank you for the invite. It's for the opportunity to be on your show.
No, thank you for answering the phone call to be on there. I really do, truly. Let me ask you a question. What is it exactly you do? You have an organization called The Rise of Broken Women. What is that?
Well, The Rise of Broken Women consists of, when I was in the shelter myself, first of all, I lived on the street for 3 days. And then I registered myself into a drop-in center where I stayed for 2 years, where I experienced how the system failed us in these institutions. At that point, looking at things, I think what really turned my head about this and how The Rise of Broken Women was created, there was a young lady that walked to the security guard and asked the security guard for a menstrual hygiene product because she was menstruating. And the comment was for her to go to the bathroom, get some toilet paper or paper towels or some newspaper, whatever it was, for her situation.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, I created The Rise of Broken Women while I was in the shelter.
Oh, wow. And that's amazing. You kind of jumped ahead of me, but I'm glad you did, because the next thing I was going to ask you is what qualifies you to talk to homeless experience, but you're talking to it from an experience. And what was it like in this what was it, a drop center, you said?
a drop-in, there's two differences. The difference between a shelter and a drop-in center is a drop-in center, there's no beds.
Okay.
So they have accommodations to pick you up and take you to what they call church bed. And these churches are paid by the state to have these women sleep in the church basement or whatever accommodations they have for these for us when we were in the shelter, so we could have bed, so we could sleep at night. A shelter has a bed, and if you're not back at a certain time, you lose your bed.
Oh wow! So you were saying at one point you was street homeless, correct? And
yeah,
then
for 3 days.
For 3 days. And so you have so many people that are street homeless that refuse to go into shelters. Why do you think that's the way it is?
Well, number one, the percentage is so low of those that are out there on the street, and they actually would want homes. But then you have the other percentage, and it's pretty high. I would say it's about 90% of these people that are out on the street. They checked out of society. They don't want any responsibility. They don't want no job. They don't want no housing. They don't want anybody telling them what to do. They just checked out.
So would you say a lot of it has to do with a lot of mental health?
Well, I think partially it is, but
Okay.
there's another component is a part in your life, like you can get, after a while, you get like, okay, this is enough. I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
So they give up on that. And
So,
then you have the ones there that have slight mental issues, but they don't escalate. Even the ones in the shelter, we all have some mental issues with us, but it takes a tragedy for us to break.
well,
Some of us is strong enough to get over it. Some of us isn't strong enough.
well, you're absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. We all have mental health, be it good or bad. You know what I mean? You have good mental health and you have bad mental health. So, I mean, you just got to be able to have a balance in between the two,
Exactly.
So, but I'm just trying to understand, because what's happening is in the last 20 years, the shelter system has exploded. It's growing. And you have to attribute, I would say you'd have to attribute a lot of it to gentrification and the restructure of not New York City, but America. And so with that said, I think we're being priced out. A lot of these apartments, what are they called? Affordable living, right? Affordable living. They have like lotteries and stuff like that through through these vouchers, city FEPs and things like that. Why do you think, in your opinion, because neither one of us are an expert on this, but in your opinion, what do you think? Why do you think homelessness is growing so big? Why is it growing so so fast?
Well, one of the things is that a lot of people are failing to take notice is it's not that these people don't want to get housing, the ones that are looking for housing. It's just the state don't realize that if you're in a shelter, how in God's name are you going to have a good credit score? Okay, because that's the first thing you do. I'm in what they call as an SRO. And in reality, I'm still homeless.
For those that don't know what SRO means, can you tell them?
Single room occupancy, which is designed by the state.
Okay.
And these units are given out through 100 Gold Street, where you get a voucher, and then you have to work. So what happens is a lot of us get stuck into these institutions such as this, where we're actually treated like animals in here. Okay, we're spoken to like we're inhuman. The thing is, I think what irritated me the most is when Bill de Blasio was shipping, hundreds of homeless people that were in the shelter, sending them to Connecticut, Newark, New Jersey, all in these suburban areas, to the point to where they couldn't survive in the suburban areas. First of all, these people had no cars. So de Blasio paid their rent for a year, and when that year ended, these people were coming back to New York. Now, one thing that he did say too, he stated that it's 69,000 people in the boroughs, 5 boroughs of New York City that are homeless. That's not, that is just those.
I think it's higher than that.
The number of homeless people as of July 2020 was 362,000 people that were homeless.
Wow.
67,000 of these people were kids, and 27,000 were in low-income housing.
See, you hit something that I always said, that the word affordable housing. See, the language, you gotta pay attention, and that's what we don't do. We don't pay attention to language. You know, affordable housing favors the word affordable favors the rich. So what's happening, I'm afraid, is that they're doing away with what you just said, low income housing, which is based off of what you earn, what you take in. And so I believe personally that there is an agenda. You know, forgive me, I keep a tinfoil kufi in my closet, and so when, you know, people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, you know what I mean, and I just see, I see a lot of conspiracy with very little theory. I mean, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to connect certain dots and say 1 and 1 is 2. That just makes sense, you know. I don't see the conspiracy. What?
Kevin, it's in our face every day, but we just don't see it.
Right. You know, you have any examples of how that looks?
It's humiliation.
I'm a firm believer that the reason why the homeless crisis in New York City is where it's at is because what does homelessness look like?
Homelessness does not have a color. It doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have a culture. It's a situation.
You know what else it doesn't have? It doesn't have a face.
No,
and until you humanize it, because at the end of the day, realistically, I would walk past you in the street and I would, perception wise, I could never say you're homeless or not, or ever was homeless. You don't know if I'm homeless or not, because it's faceless. Homelessness is faceless. What does homeless look like? Homeless look just like me and you. And so once you humanize it, I mean, we done did every march in the world. We done did the Million Man March, Million Woman March, million. We need to have homeless folk, right, convene on the steps of City Hall so that you can humanize the problem. Until you do that, the problem is never going to be humanized. It's going to be faceless. And so you're right. It doesn't have a face. It doesn't. No, it does have a culture. There is a culture with homelessness. It's called whoever tends to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they were saying at one time, you know, there's no Jewish homeless people. There's no Indians. I pass by them all the time.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Statistically, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to take a real quick commercial break. I always argue this fact, right? When you have anything good in our society, right? Foundational Black Americans are usually at the very bottom of. Anything of a detriment, we're really at the pinnacle of. And I wonder if there, and because I'm sure we do surveys all the time on when there's intake. I wonder how many of the homelessness in New York City has to do with, you know, I wonder how black and white it is. I bet it's very disparaging. But you know what? I'm going to take a real quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
What does a Regis divorce, a Regis bankruptcy, and a Regis personal injury claim have in common? Regis lawyers. Lawyers who care. Convenient, affordable, respectful, and experienced. We work 100% for the 99%. Over 20 years, we've helped thousands throughout the Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island. For a free consultation with an experienced attorney, call or text us at 212-766-1100. Y sí, hablamos español.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
And we're back. Kop or No Kop, M24 News. We're talking about homelessness. I got my guest, Miss Charlie Newman, the rise of broken women. I was talking about neither one of us have statistics, so I guess it was just really a statement. Hopefully maybe I could find in the very near future, how many, statistically, what's the statistics on black and white in homeless shelter, and maybe I could bring you back on the show and we could have a part 2 to this. But let's talk about your organization. What exactly do you do?
Okay, first of all, we make sure that these women in the shelter has the necessary products that they need on a daily basis. Like when you walk into your bathroom, you have your toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash. We provide toiletries, and hygiene products. We just don't take care of one part of the person. We take care of the whole person. Because when you direct your support in one area, you're neglecting other parts. That the person is still feeling neglected because they're only being helped in one area. We don't function that way. We have to have these things: clothing, underwear, bras and girdles. You know, like I tell them, when I was in the shelter the first 90 days, I didn't have any underwear because they didn't give us none of that stuff. You know, you can wear your bra, your t-shirts and stuff like that every day, but the underwear you can't. So these are the things that I went through, and these are the things that I support. Not only just menstrual hygiene products, baby toiletries, making sure that these moms have diapers, and the seniors in there, make sure that not all of them are bedridden, so they don't need the adult diapers, but I get toys. All of these things are donated to me for those who have bladder leakage. See, these are the things that the state is not supporting, and a lot of these nonprofit charities aren't doing it either. They're picking out one thing. Okay, they need socks. This one over here. Oh, they just need clothes. What about the rest? Did they ask? I ask people what you need. I don't just give you. How do I know what you need if I don't ask you?
Right. Is there? Well, I want to thank you for doing that. I mean, I don't, I don't want to just sound like negative Ned or Ted all the time. So, I do want to give a real big shout out to Department of Homeless Services, because yes. I think I don't think it's in their spirit to keep people oppressed. I just don't think that the people there understand the problem. And so I say all of that to say, perhaps if they hire people like a Charlie Newman to either consult or actually to work directly with, because you've actually been in that war, you can actually effectively make change. I think there's a bunch of people there that are very disconnected from the problem, and this is and as long as you have the people that are disconnected from the problem, you'll never have the right solution, if that makes sense. Is there anything else that do you only provide for women and children? Do you do anything for the men?
I do. I do for men because we have single dads, We give them shirts and clothes and stuff like that. But you know, things that they need, resources. I just put a young lady that was thrown out of her home by her husband and her 4-month-old baby. So I found her emergency housing. So we do resources too.
Wow.
I'm connected with Her Justice. What they do is they're a nonprofit organization. There's a team of women lawyers, and they help women that you know that are having tenant issues, or they need a divorce, or you know domestic violence, all of those things of that nature.
Wow. Okay. That's really awesome. I'm glad you're doing that kind of work. But again, we have to get really to the root of the problem, and the root of the problem is a lot of these folks are unemployed, and in some case unemployable. They don't even know how to turn a computer on. You know what I mean? So what would you say, how do we address that issue? Like, and what are you doing, if anything, to do that under the rise of broken women?
Well, also that was one of our projects that I created while I was in the shelter, called the Work Reacclimating Internship Program.
Okay.
And basically, what my program is, an 8-week program, and it's to train them, keep it simple, use the KISS system, give them the
keep it simple, stupid, right?
Keep it simple, stupid. Teach them how to turn on a computer. Teach them how to create an email. Teach them how to do searching within Euro. Teach them how to type, how to properly type an email, how to respond to an email. Also, we have a training on teaching them how to type an entry level resume.
Okay.
With a cover letter.
Wow.
And then we're going to have what we call is a mock interview, so they'll understand how to conduct themselves in an interview, how to sit and respond and answer a question, how it's supposed to be responded to, and leave ebonics outside the door.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then what happens is, once they finish their course, they work another 8 weeks as an internship at the Rise of Broken Women, so they can add on their resume that they worked in an organization as a business, okay?
Okay.
Instead of Burger King and Target, because you need something a little more substantial than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's outstanding. I'm glad you're addressing that. And again, these are issues that perhaps the city of New York need to look at even closely. I just want to digress a little bit. You were talking about we were talking about the vouchers earlier. Are those vouchers good all over, or are they only good in New York City?
Let me tell you something. I was blessed enough to get one, what they're called, and just as I slid under the threshold, I had what they call as a working voucher.
Okay.
And these working vouchers were only for families, but
oh, wow.
I was fortunate enough to get one, and I was the last one, and they shut the door on that.
Oh, wow.
So, but my voucher is, I can go anywhere in the United States, but I can come back to New York if I choose to.
I got you.
But the vouchers that they have now are only for New York City.
Now, help me understand something. I mean, you're not a politician, nor am I. I'm just trying to connect dots and see what makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is New York City part of the state of New York?
Yes.
So because I've heard people say the vouchers are just not enough. It doesn't cover what a rent would cost. But it might not cover the rent for what the rent costs in New York City, right? But it might cover that same voucher might cover the rent, say, to live in Rochester or Buffalo. And because it's part of the state, I would think that you should be able to use it statewide.
Right, but the thing is, this is the trick. But this is what they've done, and this happened back in 2012.
Okay.
The people that have the vouchers here now that are living in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
Bronx, Queens,
Brooklyn,
Staten Island,
Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. Those are the only boroughs that you can live in with that voucher.
So then maybe we should be looking at homelessness in New York City, or New York City on a state level. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking faster than I could talk, but that's what we need to do. And the all of these assemblymen and these new governors and all of these people, this is what you should look at. This is the first thing that we should look at, because if we're not, you have all of these shelters throughout the city. And shout out to those workers that do that type of work. I'm sure it's not easy for them. Shout out to them, you know, that provide real quality service unobjectively. But what we're doing essentially, you know, is we're warehousing human beings.
And that's it. To be honest with you, it's like a concentration camp almost. The food that they give us, starch on top of starch on top of starch. I swell up so much, and a lot of us. It was awful. The thing is, you have what, like I always say this when I'm talking about homelessness and case managers and people that are always, they got their 2 cents in or 25 cents in about homelessness. How, I always say this, how can I tell you about a broken leg if I've never had one? In other words, how can I tell you and help you through homelessness if I go home to my 800 thread count sheets and kick my shoes off in the middle of the floor? I don't know what it's like to have a hole in my shoe.
Right.
I don't know what it's like going to a refrigerator.
So do you think that there's not enough resources put into the...
Not enough resources. I tried to talk with Eric Adams. I set up an appointment. He blew me off. But that was okay, because I'm going to keep going on. Nobody's going to stop me. Right.
Right. Well, I mean, I love the work that you do. It's very profound. Right. People, and you know, we have to start looking at each other as a society in terms of, you know, this homelessness could be you. It could easily be you. You never know. Your house could burn down tomorrow. You don't have fire insurance. You know, there's different.
Look at all these floods.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So you never know. So we should never look down on no one. But I think the city definitely could do more, because what they're doing is only earmarking something. They're giving these developers. This is the real problem, and this is my issue with New York City. You know, shout out to all of the workers that try to do the best they can for these folks, and shout out to those people that are in that situation that don't want to be there and doing what they need to do to get out of that situation. But the real problem lies in our own government. Now that we've identified, it could be easily identified on a state level that the state should be carrying some of the burden. The city of New York belongs to the state of New York. So where are they in carrying the burden with this homeless crisis? You know what I mean? In fact, I believe people in Buffalo or Rochester come into New York City because they have such a robust way of dealing with homelessness. And I think a lot of that has to do with capital gain. I think New York City is one of the cities in the state of New York that figured out how to capitalize off of homelessness. Whereas homelessness is profitable here, it's also profitable in a state like Nevada because they have very little homeless. Did you know that?
I know that.
Do you know why? The reason why is because if you're homeless in Nevada, it's a crime. They criminalize homelessness, and so they'll lock you up. So it's profitable on a prison industrial complex level. So we have to kind of take out the corporate plutocracy in homelessness, be it either in the criminal justice system by criminalizing it, or just saying we found a way to make it where everyone gets paid. But you know, I'm gonna really have to bring you back on. But before we leave, tell everyone where we can find you, Charlie. Where can I find you at?
You can find us at riseofbrokenwomen.org.
Okay.
And my number is 917-306-2128. We need all the support we can get, first of all, I want to I want to launch the work reacclimating internship program, because that is so much needed. The thing is that these people, that they don't have a skill once they walk out that door, and they re-enter, okay? And they become institutionalized. They need the proper tools in order to move forward in their journey.
And now, are y'all government funded? Do you get grants? How do you fund what you're doing?
Now, I'm trying to get grants now.
But how can people donate to you?
Yes.
And can you give the website one more time?
Yes, it's riseofbrokenwomen.org.
Okay, well, Charlie, I'm most definitely going to bring you back. I really appreciate that you are on the show. I appreciate all of the good work that you're doing. Wish you nothing but success. Anytime you need anything, you please reach out to Kop Or No Kop. I'm not a stranger for giving a donation. I'm not a stranger for rolling up my sleeves and helping where needed. Okay. God bless, and I want to really thank Millennium TV 24 for giving me this platform. We are in. You could download the app right now. Millennium 24 or M24 News on your Android or your Apple, your tablet, your Fire Stick. You know what I mean? We're on Roku. We're on Roku, and we're on Apple TV, and we are around the world. This is what we're doing is global, and I really again appreciate you for sharing, because the globe, the world doesn't know what the experiences we have here. So this is your boy Kevin C. Megan from Kop Or No Kop. I'll be back next Monday. Until then, have a good evening.